Okay, great. We're recording. So welcome everyone to another workshop under the G.R.O.W series, G.R.O.W, Get Ready for Opportunities at Work. We've put together a series of workshops to help you prepare for your an internship or potential job, and things that we hope will help you as you move on through your careers. Tonight, we're fortunate enough to have Professor Cabiles, who some of you know. She's going to be presenting about how to virtually interview. As you know, now that we're in the world of doing a lot of things virtually, interviews are a little bit different when you interview virtually versus interviewing face-to-face. So she's going to take us through kind of the tips and tricks of how to virtually interview. Before I get started, we do have two upcoming events. I just want to get them mentioned because otherwise I'll forget. We do have on 11/10 a workshop on financial occupations and internship opportunities hosted by PricewaterhouseCoopers. You might want to attend. And then on 11/18, we have a workshop on how to get the most out of LinkedIn. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you should look into it and get on LinkedIn, but certainly attend that on 11/18. So our presenter today is, as I mentioned, Professor Cabiles. Professor Cabiles has been with DVC for a long time. She's been teaching, she has feet in both worlds of computer science and business administration. She teaches a lot of the same courses that Professor Winkler and I teach. And she's a real treasure for DVC. And we're very fortunate to have her as a speaker. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Liz Cabiles. Please hold your questions to the end, but we will have some time for questions. So Liz, it's all yours.
Thank you. And welcome to my students who came from the adult school, because we were talking about it last night and I told them to come by. So I have Mariana and I saw Christina. So thank you for being here. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation to share with you. Oh my God, I guess it cut off. Oh, my virtual interview is on 2 lines. Let me see if I make it bigger. Let me see if yeah, I don't know why it's showing up on 2 lines. The interview got cut. Oh. Anyway, thank you for coming today. We are going to talk about virtual interviews because when you have a screening interview with a company, you might have a virtual screening before they invite you to the workplace to see, to meet you in person. So let me go to my next slide. Our workshop overview today is on preparing for the interview, skills that employers look for during the interview, typical interview questions, and then after the interview. So now that we have been experiencing taking classes online and virtually in Zoom, this is getting ready for the workplace. We are going to see more virtual interviews. It's here to stay. And the reason why is because it saves companies time and money. They save money on traveling costs, to try to, ask you to travel to the workplace. It's more flexible on their scheduling. It's convenient for the employer. And it also expands the candidate pool. So it gives more opportunities to more people by doing it virtually. So how to prepare for the interview. And some of you know this already. Do your research on the company. Review the company website, and look at it and be familiar on what the company is known for. Know its locations. Are they local? Are they national? Are they global? Look on, you can do a search inside of Google and look at the recent news on their company. Do they have new products? Do they have new innovations? Do they have new research? Are they partnering with other companies? Things like that. Those are always good things to know. And then, of course, know the position that you applied for. Review the job description, know the job requirements, and brush up on knowledge and information in that field or industry. Let me go to the next slide. Preparing for your interview, skills that employers look for, especially in the remote environment. So if you're looking for a job and you want to be hybrid or you want to work from home, these are some skills that employers look for. And they want you to be organized. They want you to have good time management. They want you to be good communicators, be motivated, have discipline, routines, and processes. So they might ask you questions about how you would do a certain thing so that that they could see how efficient you are. And then know technology. You don't have to really know the software, but you have to know how to use it. So I'm going to share a video with you, and I'm going to have to on how to ace your video interview, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this. Let me do a new share. Can you tell me if you can see the video? Okay.
Virtual interview looks like. This is what it feels like.
Interviews are already nerve-wracking, but when you throw a video element into it, it becomes that much more anxiety-inducing for a lot of people.
That's Ashley Anderson. She's a certified career coach and remote working pro. She's been doing it for 10 years.
I specialize in helping job seekers transition from traditional office jobs into telecommute roles.
With many of us home now, chances are your next interview will be done through a screen. And, well,
It's really hard to make that connection with the interviewer, but one of the best ways you can do that is to present really well.
and she's here, virtually, to teach you how to do just that. Not this.
Step 1, set the scene. So ideally, you want to have a nice, clean, simple background. Just the blank wall is perfectly fine. You also want to think about lighting. For example, if you have lighting behind you, you could end up looking like a silhouette on the screen. Ideally, natural lighting is the best. So if you have a window that you can face or a window to your side, that would be perfect. But also, if you don't have a window to provide natural lighting, you can resort to using a desk lamp. And you really want to have your camera at eye level with you. That way you're not looking up at the interviewer and they're peering up your nostrils, and you're also not looking down on them. If you just grab a couple of books and pile them up and sit the laptop on top of that, that is going to raise it enough to bring that camera right at the eye level for you. Step 2, plan your outfit. Do a little bit of research about the company so you know what their culture is going into it. You don't want to show up to your virtual interview in a really nice suit if they're a very casual company. Keep your ensemble really basic. Don't go for really busy patterns, and try to stay away from solid colors that are really bright, as those can kind of wash you out on screen. So you might not necessarily consider your headphones as being an accessory or part of your everyday outfit, but it's something that you definitely need to consider not using when you are getting prepared for a remote interview. When you think of somebody with headphones in, there's somebody that's unapproachable and somebody that you don't want to speak to. So forego using the headphones and just stick with using the external speakers, microphones that you have on your computer. Step 3, test your tech. It's making sure that your webcam is working, your speakers are working.
Hi, this is a test.
And another super, super important thing is your internet. You really need to make sure you have enough internet speed. Generally speaking, programs like Zoom prefer 1.8 megabits per second in order to stream a one-on-one video call. And you can easily test your internet speed going on Google and just typing speed test, and you'll get tons of different options. If you're relying on Wi-Fi, that's kind of a little inconsistent with the connectivity. You can always just invest in an Ethernet cable, plug that directly into your computer and into your modem, and you're going to have a much more stable internet connection. Step 4 is practice. And a great way to do that is just to, use a friend or a family member who's willing to hop on a video call with you. It really makes all the difference. And especially when it comes to eye contact, our tendency is to look down on the screen, but what that actually looks like on the other side is that you're looking away and not genuinely looking at the person that you're talking to. So it's always important to practice and look directly into the camera. If you get easily distracted by your own image on the screen, a really simple thing you can do to avoid that is just use a Post-it note and cover up your own image. That way you're not going to be distracted by it and it's out of sight and out of mind. Step 5, interview. It's inevitably going to happen that a distraction may come around. So don't ever panic when something happens. The more that you do, or if you make a quick decision to turn off your audio or your video as a knee-jerk reaction, that can actually be more detrimental than the actual distraction itself. But if it does cause the interviewer to get interrupted with what they're doing, you definitely want to address it and not pretend like it didn't happen. You want to make sure that you're able to say, oh, my bad, that happened, and move forward after that. When you're at home, even when you're on an interview, you kind of have that more casual atmosphere than actually going into an office building to interview. And with that casual feeling, you might end up doing something that you wouldn't even think of in an office setting. For example, having your phone out. So just turn it off and put it out of sight, and make sure you have all of your internet browsers and windows closed. You don't need that open. Really, the only thing you should have open on your computer during the interview is the program that you're using to conduct the interview. Remote interviews and video interviews are a lot different. They really are. But as they become more mainstream, it's important that we adapt and adjust to them. That way we can still continue on with our careers and making career moves and not letting the fear of video interviews hold us back.
Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Sorry, let me go back. Can you see my screen or not yet? There it is. So a few days before the interview, and I'm going to maybe repeat some of the things that the video said. So because I thought they were important, so I want to make sure that I get them in there. A few days before the interview, choose your ideal location where you're going to be to interview with the company that called you. Make sure that you have good lighting. Like she mentioned, natural lighting is best. And make sure that there's no clutter around you or behind you. And luckily in Zoom, we can use the blur background. So that kind of covers all the anything that's behind you or around you. Another thing to do is check your technology, understand the platform that you'll be using, whether it's going to be Zoom, WebEx, Google Meet, or Microsoft Teams. And then be sure to test your microphone and your camera and turn off other apps or hide screens like the speaker mentioned on your computer that you don't need. Secure your pets or limit disturbances and noise. Sometimes if there's like things that are going on outside of your house, you know, of course you can't control that. And you can maybe mention that, you know, there's going to be a distraction because there's a train near my house, you know, railroad tracks near my house, and sometime a train passes by, and you can let the speaker know, the interviewer know that it might come up during the interview time. Preparation for the interview is part of it is your physical appearance. Keep your desk clean. Background should be clean and uncluttered. Have your notes, including your resume and cover letter, with you. If you're facing a wall, you can put notes on the wall to remind you of things that you want to mention instead of looking down. And then also your personal appearance. Keep it professional. Dress as if you were on an on-site interview. Be camera ready, and solid colors work best. Put your cell phone away. Practice and record your answers to questions and play them back to see how you can improve. And then during the interview, maintain good eye contact, maintain good posture, speak slowly and clearly, be respectful and engaged. Don't forget to smile. Look into your camera and try not to look down, and do your best to make a positive impression. So with all those things in mind, let's take a look at some interview questions. I listed 5 questions that you may be asked in an interview. The first one is, tell me a little about yourself. Number 2, why do you want this job? Number 3, what is your biggest accomplishment? Number 4, where else have you applied? And number 5, do you have any questions? So let's take a look at each of these and what we should be thinking about when we're going to be answering these questions for an interview. So first one, tell me about yourself. What does the interviewer want to know? They want to know if you're going to be a good fit for their company or department. So how to prepare for this? Write a short statement about things you've done related to the job that you applied for. Make it relevant. Highlight your skills, your education, your knowledge and experience. The interviewer wants to know what motivates you and why you want to work for them. The second question, why do you want this job? So know as much as possible about the job and the company. Use your research and focus on what you can do for the company. Think about your skills and abilities, that specific position. Think about, if you are working in computers and customer service, how you can help other people that work in the company, what your asset is. Think about your interpersonal soft skills, and we have that in all jobs. So how you communicate, how you work in a team. And highlight the reasons why you are the right candidate. And show your enthusiasm about the position and confirm your ability to work hard. I was on an interview panel some years ago, and we were looking for someone to help us fill our web orders. And we had a candidate and she interviewed, and it was very interesting. So she said, we asked her, what's your experience with e-commerce? And she said, I don't have any background in e-commerce, but she had really a good answer. She said, I don't have experience in e-commerce, but I do have experience in customer service. And she said, I would imagine that this is what you need to do to, fulfill the position, do the job for that position. And I thought, wow, that was really cool, because she, even though she didn't have the exact skills we were looking for, she could imagine what the job was, so she was able to give a really good answer about the things that she would do, how she would implement things, how she would make sure that shipments went out on time, things like that. And it was really a great answer. So remember that I would imagine that I would have to do these certain things. That was really a great answer. Another question could be, what is your biggest accomplishment to date? So focus on relevant work-related or educational achievements. Reflect on important experiences, times you worked on team projects and you were the lead, any of your academic or extracurricular achievements, mentoring or volunteering. So all of those, opportunities can be turned into something of accomplishment. And then next, this is a question that I thought was unique, and it's, where else have you applied? So interviewers would probably ask you this to determine how interested you are in the position, how serious and focused you are about the job search. Also, they're interested in the types of jobs you're applying for, which may be similar to their position and in the same sort of industry and work environment. So it's best to respond in non-specifics with an answer that confirms your interests. So a possible answer could be, I have applied for other jobs in the area that also involve teamwork and a strong customer service orientation. So very general. And then the last one that I want to go over is, do you have any questions? At the end of the interview, they always ask you this. Make sure you have a couple of insightful questions to ask about the work environment, job expectations, and prepare these ahead of time. So I have here in the blue little handout on the left side, you can see 6 smart questions to ask about the company in your interview. So what are the company's biggest challenges, and how is the company placed to meet those challenges? What are the future plans for growth and development? How would you describe the work environment at the company? What type of employees are most successful? How does a company measure success on the job? What sort of opportunities are there for advancement within the company? So think about that. Think about what you really want to know about the company that can make you successful there. So see my little note on the bottom. Remember, it's not the time to ask about salary and benefits because you haven't been offered the job yet. So after you're offered the job, then you can ask about that. But until you get the offer, don't mention anything about that. And I'll get to the question at the end. We're almost there. So and then after the interview, take a few minutes to jot down what questions you felt you aced and where you could have been better. These notes can serve as a valuable guide for future interviews. Make sure to follow up with a thank you note or email message that can reveal your commitment to the position. So this is really interesting to me because I didn't do this, but I have a friend and he interviewed for a lot of different positions, and he would, after the interview, sit down and write down like some of the things that he felt he did well on and some of the things he could improve on. And so when one time I asked him, I said, do you remember when you interviewed for this or that, director of this or that program? And he said, yes. And I go, do you remember what they asked you? You know, and I asked him, and he goes, let me look at my notes. And I said, oh my gosh, you have notes about that? And he says, yes, because after I interview, I always write down, what I remembered from the interview and what, he felt confident about, and also where he could have improved. So that was really impressive. And so it's good to take notes. It's good to remember. what you might be asked again. And if you felt that you weren't as confident that time when you had the interview, then the next time around you can, think about how you would answer that question. And don't forget to follow up. I went to, I helped one of our employer partners find an intern. And they actually had two choices. I sent her a couple students to work in it was in the county office. And she picked one of the students to be an intern in her office. And I told both of them, I said, please send your thank you note. And when I went to visit her one day, she had the thank you note of both of the students, and she said it was really valuable to her that they came back and sent a thank you note. So don't forget to say thank you. So how are you going to remember all of this? I have a resource for you that is called an interview cheat sheet. And I'm going to try to put the link. I had the link to the direct sheet, and now they changed it. So I'm going to copy it. And let me see if I can put it in the chat. So this is the article where it's from. And it looks like this. It's an interview cheat sheet. And what's on it? Let me see if I have it bigger. And you can have it when you are preparing for your interview. Yeah, let me share my screen. Let me see. And this sheet you can actually type on. So I sent you the link to the article, and then after that, in the article, you can see it says download here, and then you can get the interview cheat sheet. And you can type on it directly. You can type the company name. You can type the job title that you applied for, the person who interviewed you, because you're going to send them a thank you note or a thank you message, and then the interviewer's job title. And then some of your research is going to go here. What's the mission of the company? Products and services? Who's the CEO? What's the culture like? What's in the news about the company? And then on the right side, what about me? What's my elevator pitch? Any relevant experience? Some of my strengths and weaknesses? And why are you applying for this role in that company? And then also on the left side on the bottom, you can have your questions that you're going to ask. And then on the right, questions to prepare for. So tell me a time you made a mistake, handled a difficult situation, went above and beyond, and stepped up as a leader. So for each of your interviews, you can have a sheet and then start to practice different scenarios that you might encounter and how you would answer the questions. Let me go back. And I have another resource for you also. It's a link also. So this is 50 common interview questions. And it includes the answers. Let me see if I can. Oops, I went all the way to the end. But I'm going to see if I can try to send you that link, because this is pretty helpful. So I know Professor Worsham and Professor Winkler also teach business communications. So if you want to chime in, please share with us your knowledge about interviewing and what things to expect. Let me stop my share. And did we have a question also inside the chat?
I think we had a question from Sebnam. Hopefully I pronounced your name the right way. Maybe one from Kyle. Does anyone have any questions for Professor Cabiles?
It was a super clear presentation, so I think that's why I didn't have any questions.
Okay.
I do have one quick question.
Yes.
So when you say send a thank you, so I do panel interviews. I'm the position I'm applying for as panel. Do you send one to each and every person on the panel, or do you send her on the person that's conducting or facilitating it?
So what I do is I ask everybody on the panel. And what I noticed one time when I was actually it was a face-to-face interview, but I had a panel and it was 4 different people, and I asked them for their name. I asked them what their position was, and after that it was actually another college. And after that, I looked it up. I looked it up online, and I found everybody's name, and I sent them a thank you note. And I was called to the second interview after that.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was because of sending them a thank you note, but I did send everybody a note.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Or an email. Yeah. So I think it's just common courtesy to just say thank you. And then maybe if that position is not for you and there's another position out there, they might call you and, ask you if you're interested in something else. So it's just to keep your options open.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Professor,
So,
what would be a good time to follow up after your interview?
it
Would
all
you
depends.
ask? Oh,
Yeah, I think you can ask the interviewer. That can be one of your questions at the end of the interview is what are our next steps after? And then, if they say, well, you'll hear from us within a couple weeks, I would let the couple weeks pass. And then I would say, okay, you know what? It's November 18th now, and I haven't heard anything. Let me follow up, And actually, for the other job that I interviewed for, they said you'll hear from us. That day they asked me, do you have your references? And then I had printed it out and I forgot it. So when I got home that day, I made sure I emailed it to the HR person. And that next day, I interviewed on Thursday, and on Friday they were calling the people. And I knew because I asked, my references contacted me. And they said, I missed the call, but hopefully they'll call me back. So they did call back on the following Monday. So make sure you bring have your references ready too, if they ask for it. So I put in the chat, it is called Advice for Answering 50 Common Interview Questions. This was published at DVC a while back, but a lot of it's still pertinent today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Why did you leave your last job? What experience do you have in the field? Do you consider yourself successful? What would your coworkers say about you? So there's 50 questions there. And it's a good way for you to try to prepare for your interview. Professor Worsham, did you have any experiences with difficult interview questions?
I can't think of any difficult questions I've had offhand. I have sat in interviews panel interviews where I've been the candidate, and I've had several people interview me at one time, and that can be very, very stressful.
Right. I think the panel are more challenging than individual interviews.
But that can happen virtually too. I was, my last corporate position, I was interviewed first over the phone for a screening phone call, not uncommon. Then I interviewed with my prospective boss, face to face. But then because the company had many locations across the country, I came into the organization, set the conference room, had several people around me. So I probably had about 8 people at the conference room with me that were going to interview me, plus people were virtually interviewing me, about 20 people in another organization.
Wow.
So it was a lot. It was a lot. But those things can definitely happen. So that, so not only did I have to have good interviewing skills from a phone standpoint, from just a verbal standpoint, but then one-on-one and in a group. So you know what can happen, happen. Be prepared for all types of different situations.
Yeah, virtual interviews. I think that's probably your screening. Probably your first interview will be a screening interview, and it will be virtual. We used to do a lot of it on the phone, but now they want to see you. They want to see their candidates. They want to see if there's some kind of connection that you're making with that employer. So that's really important. And then, of course, if they don't feel that same connection that you feel, that they feel, then you might not be called to another interview. My daughter and my son, they actually interviewed for a company, both of them different times, but for the same company. And they interview them sequentially. So first it's going to be one of the supervisors, then a lead person, then the HR person, then somebody else. But it's like, in a 1 hour block, 15 minutes each person. And then they talk about, the candidates, and then they get back to the people, the applicants. And so, but they get interviewed, these 4 interviews, and they don't know what the questions are going to be. They just have to be ready.
You have to, I think key for interviewing is to, as Professor Cabiles said, look at those questions. And you can also Google common interview questions. A lot of overlap, but because a lot of interviews use similar questions, but have those answers ready beforehand and practice them enough that you don't sound as if you're just memorizing the answers when you interview, but you sound natural, like you're answering them naturally, but be prepared.
Yeah. And they want to know what kind of person you are. So that's what it's really all about, is that, they want to see if you're a good fit for their company, their organization.
I think also it's important, if you ask ahead of time, if you can take some notes during the interview. And, the nice thing with virtual, you can have your notepad here, you can have your pen. You're not sitting there just looking at your notepad, but you can still have the reference with your eyes and your face focusing in on the interviewer, and also to have questions written out for you to ask. So there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, if they ask you, do you have any questions? You can say, yes, I put several together, and you can have them right in front of you. And I would have at least 8, so that when you are asking them, you're not repeating things they've already told you. So, if you only put 2 or 3 down and they happen to be the 2 or 3 they touch on, then what do you ask, and you don't want to be caught off guard. So it's helpful to have a list available to you right at your disposal. So you can just look down real quickly and let them know that you did put a list together.
I think it also shows that you're very interested in the company, because an interview is a two-way street, right? They're interviewing you, but you also get to interview them. But it also shows you're highly interested in the company if you come prepared with questions that you want to ask them, and that will go a long way. It shows your interest and enthusiasm for the position.
I have a question.
Yes, Sandra.
So I'm really good at explaining what my strengths are, not so good at explaining what a weakness would be. Is there any suggestions on a professional way to say what a weakness is and then transition it into a positive?
So When I think about weakness, I think about where I want to grow, my growth and development, you
Okay.
know? So whether it's in growing in knowledge or growing in some of my soft skills, that would be what I would emphasize.
Okay.
So yeah, so think about that, where you want to grow. You know, if you
Okay.
want to be, yeah, if you want to learn more about different computer programs, or you're trying to learn more about you know, managing your time a little bit better, those kind of things, turn it into a positive. You know, I started doing this because I wanted to manage my time a little bit better. I started keeping, you know, a, you know, a desk calendar instead of just having it on my, you know, cell phone, that type of
Okay.
thing. You can explain that and how it
Okay.
helps you. Yeah,
Yes. Thank you.
sure.
And I'm also realizing that it is a role play, but not robotic. Like Ms. Worsham just said, I have to get to a place where I'm comfortable enough that the words flow and that the conversation is genuine.
Right.
One way to do that is by practicing with somebody that you know, but somebody you're not going to go crazy with, right? So that you're not going to all go laughing. Because, you know, I tell my students, I'm working with several groups, and the Year Up students are going to be doing their self intros next week. And when you say it alone to yourself in your head, it's
Yes.
very different than when we articulate it out. So an example that I give is Piranha Pool. Piranha Pool is an event that the college is sponsoring. So if I was going to be talking about the Piranha Pool and I just say it in my brain, it goes like this. But when I say it to you, I have to stop because it's not something people are familiar with and try to enunciate. So, you know, currently I'm putting together an event called the Piranha Pool, which is similar to the Shark Tank that you see on TV. So if I just say that in my brain, it is going to come out a lot faster and that's going to be fine. But when I say it out loud, you hear yourself and you realize where you need to stop or pause so somebody can grasp what you're saying.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What other questions do you have? These are great questions. Elizabeth, you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, but just like a piece of advice that I know a lot of students at DVC, you know, they're preparing to be able to enter careers that they don't have any experience with. But just like the speaker was describing how someone who had experience with customer service could relate that to e-commerce. So I did all my prereqs for nursing school at DVC. And when I went for my first interview and for a nursing position, you know, I didn't have any experience other than nursing school and clinicals. And they asked me about, you know, experience working as part of a multidisciplinary team. Well, I had a lot of restaurant experience, and I was able to describe how, you know, in many ways, a nurse is kind of like a server in a restaurant because they work with managers, they work with other specialists, and their focus is on the, you know, the customer, the client. So just, you know, don't sell yourself short when you think of all the experience that you do bring, because so many skills in all kinds of, you know, entry-level positions, they're applicable to, you know, these positions that you need a license for. That's all.
Thank you for sharing that. That's really good. So those are so skills that you can use across different jobs. They're called transferable skills. So skills like customer service, working in a team, being responsible, you know, having responsibilities, taking initiative, those kind of things. You can do those in any job. And if you did it in a previous job and now you're applying for something new and different, you're still going to take those skills with you because you're still the same person. So you have, and so you're going to show how you apply it in a different situation, you know, and you're going to talk about your experience. And it's really important for you to be able to articulate that. That might be a little bit challenging in the beginning, but that's why we practice. We always practice our interview.
Yeah, that was one of my main questions that I had is how do you bridge, like I have a bunch of different customer service things. How do you bridge that to a current situation? And so that was really nice to hear her.
Mm-hmm. It's really good.
And I think that oftentimes if you don't get a call back or you feel very discouraged, and I know Liz alluded to that earlier, and my sister is a prime example. She interviewed for a job that she really wanted, and she was, she wasn't offered the job. And I told her, I said, keep in touch with them. So she would like send them a note, like if it was the holidays, just saying happy holidays, connected with them, like in the spring, send a little letter, a card, how are you, such as that. And 6 months later, they ended up calling her because the person was not the right match, could not continue on that job. And so she was hired. And it ended up being a company that later was bought out by UPS. So she was very fortunate to have benefits, a good pay. And, it's just the tenacity, because it's very easy for us to get despondent. We feel that they don't want us. And having worked in recruiting and working with other companies, there are many factors. So, I don't want individuals to feel that it's something that they've done right or wrong. There can be many different things that go into the hiring, the reasons that their people are hired for whatever reason. So if you like the company, if you feel that it's a good match, you just have to not be I think aggressive, but you have to be assertive and keep in touch with them and let them know of your interest. You never know where it can go.
Right, that's true. Like the situation that I was telling you about with the 2 interns, they chose one intern, and then she did keep the card of the other intern, and she asked me later on if the other one, once the first intern finished her internship, if the second one would want to come on. And I said, well, you have her information, go ahead and give her a call and see if it's going to work out. And it wasn't just the right time for that other person to intern, but at least she did get a call back. So she actually picked both interns, but not at the same time. So there's always that opportunity. That's why you want to give your thank you note, and then say if there's anything in the future that you would think would be a good fit for me, please let me know, and there could be an opportunity. I have a friend too who she applied for a position on the campus, and they actually wanted her for a different position that was a higher pay, because she had a lot of knowledge about the college. And they said, well, you know what, this position is they already had they interviewed her for it, and then after that they said we've already chosen our candidate for this position, but there's another position and there's another opportunity. So there's always opportunities. And maybe if you interview with a company like Professor Winkler said that you really wanted, maybe it's just not the right time. And then you would have to, later on, you could apply for that opportunity again if it comes along. Sometimes it has to do with timing.
Right. The other thing is you build your network. So for example, if you interview with a company and you don't get the position, but you met the person with whom you interviewed and you made a really positive impression, that person may think of you for another position at the company as has been mentioned, but that person may move on to another organization, and that person may then think of you for a position there. So that's happened to me actually twice. I've interviewed a lot in my lifetime, and I interviewed for 2 different positions, and I didn't over the course of a very long time, but I didn't get the position either time. But I made a really good connection with the person who could have hired me. And then later on in my life, I reached out to those people, and they found, they let me know when positions were open. So if you make a really good connection and the person thinks highly of you, then you have an opportunity to work potentially somewhere else with that person. So that's another reason to not be despondent if you don't get a specific position, because as Professor Cabiles said, it could be just timing. It could be that they already filled the position, but always think of it as an opportunity. Always think of making connection and potentially having an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah, building your network and and then maintaining that network. That also happened to my husband before. He applied, he had a job, a different job with a different company. And then he was looking for a different position because he had finished, went back to school and finished his education. And so then after that, he reached out to one of his friends and he goes, we're not hiring in our office here, but they're hiring over there. And he applied and he got the job. So, I mean, just, make sure that you keep in touch with people that are in your network. And now that we have LinkedIn, because we didn't have LinkedIn back then, now you can see what companies, some of your colleagues and your classmates will go to, and what opportunities there might be. You can always ask them, what's it like to work over there? And that's always a great thing, because then you kind of already get a little bit of a background before you even, interview. And so that can help you with your research.
I think we probably have one or two more questions.
I'm wondering, sometimes they ask, like, do you know anybody who works here? And is it good to mention somebody who works there if you don't necessarily know what their, how they do there, if that makes sense? Like if that would look good on you or bad on you?
Professor Cabiles, did you want to answer, or would you like one of us to answer?
Do you have any suggestions, Professor Worsham?
I think Professor Winkler can add in too, but I think if they ask you if you know anyone at the company, you should be honest and say you do. I don't think it generally will hurt you. I think the interviewer is just trying to establish, whether or not you have any kind of connection with the company. And then of course that interview could also talk to that person and say, hey, we just interviewed Brittany. What do you think of her? But I think it's okay to say. I think it's okay to say you know someone, because you definitely don't want to say you don't. You want to be honest.
I concur with that. On the other hand, if you know this person and they have been a problem individual, let's say, or they're not the most upbeat, they might be having issues, even told you about issues, I would say, yes, I know Miss Worsham, and that's it. I would not elaborate. And hopefully the interviewer will pick up on that, And if they ask in what capacity, because they could ask that question, you could say, I know them casually. But so that differentiates. If you say, oh, they're my bestie, and and then they've not been the best employee, unfortunately that could come back and could hurt you. You don't know these things, so the best thing to do is be honest and then use good common sense based on what your knowledge is of that individual, right?
I think we have time for one more question.
If we don't have a question, I thought I'd talk about references.
Sure.
Just real quick. Oh, Diana had a question. Oh, Diana has no, I guess a comment. So references are really important, and your instructors can be references. Your former employers can be references. How do you get references when you're currently working and you can't use your current boss? Do not use your current boss as a reference. That would not make sense. So that's why the networking, as they've both talked about, both professors tonight, is going to be important, that you keep in touch with people. Make sure that you ask permission before you put their name down. And that you also get back in touch with them and let them know that you're starting to interview. Because especially if students have talked to me and been my student for 2 or 3 years ago, I might have 150 to 250 students that have come into my world in the past 3 years. And if the person is Steve, I may not remember Steve, but if Steve reaches out and emails me and says, hey, I'm Steve and I was in your class and you said I could be a reference, that will jog your memory. So when I get a phone call from a prospective employer and they say, could you talk about Steve Jones? I don't go, who? Or there's not this pause. I go, oh yes, Steve Jones is in my class, blah, 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 right? So it's really important that you ask permission and that you do follow up with your contacts to let them know that you are going to be interviewing, again, so they're not caught off guard. And likewise, if there's new email or new contact information, you can give that to your to the candidate so they can give that to the employer and the employer knows how to reach you. Because if they can't reach your references, like with Liz's case where she went in and interviewed, the next day they're calling. If they could not reach her references, they may go to the person number 2 on that list underneath Liz and call those references, and then Liz is out. But we're happy that Liz got the job.
And remember, if they do contact your references, please thank your references because they are doing you a favor.
Let them know what you're doing. We always like to hear what our students are doing. Or people that we are actually, helping with their career path. So it's always good to follow up and have contact.
Yeah, we always want to hear your success stories and what happens because, it makes us feel good that we see all of you, progress through your career and then find those opportunities. So it's really important for us, if you ever even just keep in touch, not even as a reference. It's always good to hear back from everyone.
We could be part of your network.
Yeah, true.
So we'll wrap it up for this evening. Thank you so much, Professor Cabiles. Thank you for this, that whatever your major is, this topic is vital. So it's not strictly business students that need to listen to this, but anybody and everyone that's going to be going out and interviewing at any age, it doesn't really matter. So it's sort of like ageless. This topic is generic and it's something that needs to be, you always need to refresh yourself what's going on. So thank you for bringing that to us. And then in 2 weeks, or in a week, November 10th, we have accounting internships and opportunities with Price Waterhouse Coopers. And then we are going to be talking about LinkedIn networking on November the 18th. So we hope you will join us for those 2 presentations and have a great weekend, everyone. And thank you all for joining us. Remember, Sunday, you get an extra hour sleep. But we professors are giving that to you all, our students.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor Cabiles.
Thank you.
I think some of us have to leave, but a few of us can stand for a few minutes afterward.
Thank you so much. It was very informative.
Thank you.